Welcome to our new mini-series on The Golden Rule is Love. A few weeks back, our friend Simon told us about a pastor in a church in America who ditched his sermon for a few months and simply said, love one another. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that to you today. But over the next few weeks, we are going to be thinking about what love looks like and how we can love one another well. We're going to be digging into the book of Romans. So if you don't have a Bible with you, now is your chance to press pause and go and find one. We're going to be looking at Romans chapter 12, verses 9 to 21. So let's start by looking generally at the book of Romans. Who was it written to? Well, it was written to the church in Rome, and they were a fledgling church, mostly made up of Gentile, which means non-Jewish believers. That means they wouldn't have had a detailed knowledge of the Old Testament or have been following its rules and regulations. It wasn't an organised machine like modern churches can often appear. It was just a bunch of people meeting in each other's houses and trying to follow the way after their friends had told them about Jesus. The church was suffering intense persecution because the Jews who didn't follow the way liked to stir up trouble. And also because Jesus claimed to be the king of the whole world, and Caesar wanted to be the king of the whole world. So who was Romans written by? It was written by a guy called Paul. He was a leader in this new way, this new church, and he went round telling people about Jesus, teaching them how to live in light of Jesus and generally trying to encourage the new church. At the time of writing this, he'd never been to Rome, but he was trying really hard to get there to meet and encourage the believers. So what's the main theme of this letter? What does it talk about? Romans is all about the word righteousness, which means being right with God. If you were to read it through from start to finish, you would find the word righteous and righteousness occur 55 times in this book. Why? Well, because the gospel is all about the good news of Jesus and how to get right with God. Paul is explaining the story of the gospel right from the beginning of time up to now with these new Christians. And the story is heavily interwoven with love. God's love for mankind. His love for his chosen people, Israel, and how Jesus died to save everyone and make everyone righteous, whether or not they were in the chosen people. In Romans 12, Paul starts on the "so what now then" section. Now that they've accepted Jesus and the righteousness that comes from knowing Jesus, what do they do with it? At the start of Romans 12, Paul tells them to be living sacrifices, to make a conscious effort to be holy and different from the rest of the world, and to keep God at the centre of their lives. And now in verses 9 to 21, he's telling them how they should relate to other Christians. In the ESV, this section is called Marks of a True Christian. And I think Paul has taken inspiration from Jesus' words in John 13, verses 34 and 35, when Jesus says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." So what is love? What does it look like? Let's start by taking a look at our Bible passage. The first thing we're going to see is that love is connection. Love is connection. In verse 9, in the NIV, that's the New International Version, it says, "Love must be sincere." The New Living Translation says, "Don't just pretend to love others, really love them." The original Greek word is anhypokritos. No, it's not a disease. It literally means without hypocrisy. A hypocrite in ancient times was an actor, and they used to wear masks to become different people on stage. So to love without hypocrisy means to love without a mask. I quite like the phrase, love must be honest, or love must be real. And with honesty comes incredible vulnerability. When we're honest with people, we take off the mask and show them who we really are. I don't know how many of you had to dress in Sunday best when you went to school, when you were younger. I did when I was at my grandparents' church, even had hats and gloves. There is something nice about making Sunday special and entering into the spirit of Sabbath. The problem that I, and no doubt you, have encountered is when we don't just wear our special clothes on a Sunday, but we put on a Sunday mask and turn up to church as a different person from who we are the rest of the week. Do you wear a mask when you're around your church family? In our Kintsugi Hope group, we've been discussing how honesty in relationships is powerful and it can lead to a whole new level of connection. But that to be that honest, that real with people, to be vulnerable and take off the mask is really scary. Brené Brown is a research professor in the US. She has a lot to say about vulnerability, and this is one of my favourite quotes. She says, "The definition of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is our most accurate measure of courage." I love that. Honesty is brave. Vulnerability is courageous. So why is honesty important? Because when you experience love and acceptance after being vulnerable with someone, you feel more connected. And when we know someone more deeply because they have shared something with us, it creates connection. Our love for each other grows. Honesty creates connection. Now, this does not mean that we have to pour our heart and soul out to every single member of the church every time we see them, but it is about allowing yourself to drip feed a little more trust into your relationships. Having an ever widening group of people who you can share openly with. How about the next time someone asks you how you are, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm fine," when you're clearly not, you can be honest enough to say, "No, I'm not okay, but I have people that I'm talking to about it. Thank you for caring enough to ask." And if you're not talking to someone about it, maybe God's put this brother or sister in your path to love you honestly. Going back to our passage, verse 10 says, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honour one another above yourselves." The words devoted and brotherly have the same root word, the same beginning in Greek, and that is the word phil. And phil indicates a personal connection, like a family connection. It leads to philos, and philos is the love that comes from connection. The words for devoted conjures up pictures of the love of a parent for their child. And brotherly love brings pictures of caring and looking out for each other. This love is protective and pastoral. It shows strong affection. And this is how we're supposed to feel about our brothers and sisters in Christ. But we can only feel that way about them if we feel connected. Paul says, "Honour one another above yourselves." The word for honour is translated in different parts of the Bible as price, value, honour, or preciousness. And just like a parent values their child's well-being over their own, because of their love and connection they feel to them, we are to value our church family above ourselves. There is an element of humility to this. to honour others, we need to humble ourselves. By valuing others' needs above our own, we have to give up any sense of our own entitlement and pride. It turns the world's opinion on its head, because instead of "you're worth it," it says "they're worth it." In my Bible, there's a cross-reference to the verse in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, which in the New Living Translation says this: "Do not be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves." Whoa, what a challenge. I love the ESV translation of Romans chapter 12, verse 10, because it says, "Outdo one another in showing honour." Can you imagine what our church family would look like if we all tried to outdo one another in highlighting the value of others? In order to do this well, we need to know each other well. We need to be connected. We need to be honest with one another. We need to be devoted to one another. And we need to value one another. Love is connection.
There was